Professor Anna Kowalska-Piezelska, Dr. G. Sochios, Dr. Yash Chawla ji, Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. Amitav Vahi ji, Registrar Dr. Pavan Kumar ji, Deputy Registrar Dr. C.M. Rajoria ji, and the galaxy of intellect on and off the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Neeti Mehta from Humanities Department, and she is Dr. Hansa Chaudhary from Physiotherapy Department as your host for the symposium. I feel privileged to extend our warm welcome to all present here to be a part of International Symposium on the topic Emerging Technologies and Business Intelligence. Our educational institution has always provided great opportunities of learning for our students. They always remain ahead of others and at heart with the education system in the whole world. It has been a part and parcel of Bhagwant University to provide a stage for such intellect event. It's said that one song can change a moment, one idea can change a world, and one step can start a journey, and a prayer can change the impossible. To begin and illuminate the day and to feel the glory of God everywhere and in tribute to the goddess of knowledge, I invite all the dignitaries on the dais to come forward for lighting the lamp. Meanwhile, we can listen to the Saraswati Vandana. Please. University, we welcome all of you here, sir.
I am very happy to welcome our guests, experts, Professor Rafal, Professor Kadraziana, Professor Anna, Professor Dimitrios, and Dr. Yash. We are very happy that experts from Poland have taken time out of their busy schedule and address the symposium in Bhagwant University Ajmer. I would like to inform them that we have got faculties in the area of mechanical, civil, electrical, electronics, computer, IT, etc. In engineering, apart from that, we have got faculties in law, education, pharmacy, physiotherapy, and art, science, commerce, business management, etc. Our students, during our 4-year program, they have to take a tour to neighboring countries like Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, or some countries like Japan, etc., so that they can get an international exposure. Our students are well disciplined, and our alumni have been placed in many multinational companies in India and abroad. I hope that the interaction with the Polish experts will be of great utility to the faculty members present in the symposium. I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Chairman Dr. Anil Singh ji, we admire your leadership and decision-making skills. We look forward to continuing to learn from you and appreciate all your encouragement and support. Anil ji has done BTech Civil Engineering from Birla Institute of Technology, Mehersa, Ranchi, Jharkhand. MBA from Central University, Bilaspur. PhD from State University, Bikaner, Rajasthan in the field of management. He worked as Chief Engineer at IRCON in the International, that is Ministry of Railway, Indian government in Singapore, Malaysia, and many other important projects. He has visited many countries as Indian government delegate like South Africa and Republic of Seychelles with President of India. Mrs. Pratibha Devi Singh Patil in 2012, Norway and Finland with President of India, Dr. Pranav Mukherjee in 2014, and Mauritius with Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Damodar Das Modi in 2015. He is a well-known social worker and nationalist thinker. He has many awards to his scholars. Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Sadbhavna Award by Shri Govind Narayan Singh in 2006, Education Excellence Award by Mr. Chetan Bhagat, who is a novelist, in 2011, Best Engineering College Award by Dr. Shashi Tharoor.
Sir Raphael Warren, Professor Katrudan Warren, Professor Anna, Dr. Dimitrios, Dr. Yash Chawla, all from Wroclaw University of Science and Technology, Poland. We all welcome you on the occasion of this international symposium titled as Emerging Technology and Business Intelligence. I believe this is the field which this university is having expertise on, and this symposium will definitely help our PG students, research scholars and faculty members, and this will be a good interactive session on the subject. As you all know, as our Vice Chancellor also informed, that Bhagwant Group believes in globalization. In this regard, we conduct every year an international tour for our students and faculty, and so far many countries have been visited by our students and faculty like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, etc. We have developed number of MOUs with universities of reputation like Sheffield Hallam University of UK, Gannon University USA, University of Western Australia, Kasseter University, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. These MOUs are done with the idea of faculty exchange and the students to pursue their project works over there. Bhagwant Group is steadily growing, and we have number of campuses. Like we have a university in Uttarakhand, that is Bhagwant Global University. We have a large campus of more than 100 acres in Uttar Pradesh, Muzaffarnagar, wherein we are having engineering college, pharmacy college, medical college, and education, which conducts B.Ed and BTC program. So we are in various fields of education, not limiting to engineering alone. We are in medical, nursing, pharmacy, and this campus also has most of the program. Here we have got a special program on agriculture, where a number of overseas students also come to learn the agriculture technology, how the agriculture is developed. They conduct the research also in this campus. So this is what Bhagwant Group is trying to do, and make the educational scenario as global as possible. Thousands of our students are working overseas in various fields. Today it's a proud moment. In our Indian culture, it is said that when the father's shoes fit into son's foot, it is a proud moment for father. Likewise, Yash Chawla is sitting as an expert here. We have trained him, and I am proud of him that today he has come as an expert for the delivering lecture in this symposium. So this is a proud moment for all of us that our student, our son has reached that place. With this, today is the day for experts. They will be giving expert talks. So I close my talk here with again welcoming all professors from overseas to this symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such beautiful words. I would like ETBI Series General Chair Dr. Yash Chawla, sir, to introduce us to ETBI Series.
Good morning, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais, off the dais. It's a very emotional and nostalgic moment for me, as sir already mentioned. This is the place where I studied. This is the place where I had my first job, so I started my career here. So it's really a privilege to be back here. And some of the things that relate with the ETBI series actually also emerged during my time here. Dr. Anil Singh was always, I used to come up with random ideas, I still do. So he was always the one who used to say yes. I never heard no from him. He would always give me questions, like he would never say no. If something was not ripe enough to be executed, he would always ask me a question which I didn't have an answer to, and then I have to find the answer, and then I can go back to him, and then he would say yes. And I'm been privileged that right now I also have a boss, Professor Rafal Veron, who does the same. So I've been really fortunate to have mentorship, guidance, and people, leaders who have truly guided me, and that's what has led to this ETBI series. So last year when I was in India, we just had a thought that there is a lot of potential in India, especially at places where people think that nobody is actually doing research. There are people who are doing very good work. The only thing that might be missing for them is to get the right connect so that they can fly to new heights. I was fortunate enough to get it, and with my wonderful colleagues, with their support, this is what ETBI series is for. To give you an opportunity to find your right connect and to fly to new heights in your career. So we started off from Chennai, we then went to Rajkot, we are coming to Ajmer, next we go to Mathura, we go to Roorkee, we go to Noida, and then we end up at IIT Delhi. So this is a series of 7 symposiums, lectures and workshops, and this is something that we are working on with emerging technologies and business intelligence under the umbrella of business intelligence program that we have started at our university, where teaching and learning happens in a very unique manner. In a unique manner in the sense that we bring students, industries and academia on the same platform and let them talk with each other, let them discuss with each other. Students also have the opportunity to criticize industry people as much as industry or academia can criticize them. So that power, the ideas, the thoughts that the students have can be more innovative than most experienced people as well. Because once you become experienced, you are in the niche of something. But when you are raw, you can actually provide an outside perspective on something which might be very, very valuable. So I hope today with our interactions, all of you would have this outside perspective, and we can talk with you, you can talk with us, and we can form a bond, or we can form a learning platform or a research collaboration platform which can take all of us to new heights. So I invite you all to ask us as many questions as you can. Don't take like a knife and a fork and eat our brains as much as you can. Thank you for having us here. We appreciate all the hospitality, and of course, it's really good to be back home. Thank you.
I'm profusely elated to take an opportunity to introduce our expert, Professor Rafal Veron. Rafal Veron is a professor of management science, rector's proxy for the evaluation of the quality of scientific activity, and head of the Department of Operation Research and Business Intelligence at the Wroclaw University of Science and Technology, Holland. He is a member of Academia Europea, Academy of Europe, the Statistics and Econometrics Committee of Polish Academy of Science, and the International Institute of Forecasting. He serves on the editorial board of several journals, including the top-tier International Journal of Forecasting. Over the last 20 years, Rafal has built an impressive international reputation in energy forecasting. On behalf of Bhagwant Group, I thank him for providing his gracious presence to join us today to enhance our knowledge, Sir, please enlighten us with your words on technical talk on markets for electricity. Please, sir.
Probably the warmest welcome I've ever had at any university, so thank you very much. This is a real pleasure to be here. Okay, I'll be talking about markets for electricity. I have no idea how much you know about them. In Europe, this has been something we've been talking about a lot, especially since the Ukrainian crisis and the skyrocketing of the prices in Europe for all kinds of energy commodities. However, this has been part of an energy transformation that has taken place since the early 1990s around the world. We see that electricity is treated as a commodity and traded at exchanges in different places around the world. And I'm going to talk about how these markets work and what kind of tools we are using to forecast those prices to help make better decisions when trading in these markets. As usual, the results I'll be showing would not be possible without an army of PhD students, and you can see them here, dressed in Roman uniforms, helping out the leader here in the front. Okay, so this is of course joint work as anyone. So let me move on to the core of the business. Okay. So at any moment in time, we can ask ourselves, what is the price of electricity in a given market? What I'm showing you here is actually the price of electricity in India at the Indian Energy Exchange for today. So in India, the trading is done in 96. Well, the scale is a bit, I mean, it's hard to see from this distance, but what you need to know, here we have 96 15-minute intervals, so quarter-hourly intervals. Each interval is a separate option and a separate price setting. So every dot on this green curve is a price of electricity in Indian rupees, up to 12,000 rupees per megawatt hour. Megawatt hour, this is the basic unit that is used for trading electricity. Here, which is quite common in many markets, you see a morning peak of prices, so higher prices in the morning when you need electricity, when there's not that much natural resources that can supply electricity, especially in countries where the sun is used as one of the sources. So what the sun is shining essentially in the afternoon. This is the strongest operation of the sun is in the afternoon. And there in the middle of the day, typically the consumption of non-solar powered generation is the lowest here in the middle of the day, and hence the prices go down. In the morning peak, also in the evening peak, when already the sun is setting down, we again observe higher prices because the sun cannot provide us electricity anymore. We have to use other sources. So this kind of two peak structure is pretty common in the world, of course with some alternations in different countries or different geographical regions. And so every point on this curve is actually a result. Okay, now what happened here? Okay, sorry. It was the market. Sorry. I wasn't moving fast enough with the slides. Sorry for that. Okay. So every point here is a point on the. Every point is a quarter-hour interval. So we are now around here around 11 a.m. So this is the current price of electricity. We already know the prices till the end of the day. This is actually today's data, downloaded yesterday. Why? Well, we will see in a moment how this is achieved. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is a bit delayed. So the next slide shows you how these markets operate. This is a bit simplified picture. This is more common in Europe, where we have 24-hourly intervals. In India, you have 96 quarter hours, so there are more of them. But the idea is exactly the same. So in the morning of day D, we are on day D. In the morning of day D, we submit the bids to the exchange, the supply and the demand bids. Around noon each day, there's a price setting mechanism for all the bids are aggregated, and the intersection of the demand and supply curves give you the price of electricity. So around noon on day D, we already know the prices for the next 24 hours. So by this time, we don't know the prices for tomorrow, but we know them in around 1-2 hours. And this is how all is happening. So we are looking at series of vectors of 24 in Europe or 96 in India, prices on a daily basis. So we have a daily frequency, and you have 24 or 96 observations per day. This is actually, you can look at the data. This is from India. So for the hour 11, so put our 11:15. So we are perfectly on time. I expected a minor delay. I've done it right. So exactly, we are at this moment. This is exactly how the bits are. Look at our in India. So here you have the sell bits aggregated, and you have the demand bits also aggregated in this direction. The red curve and the blue curve give you the volume in megawatts. This is here exactly 7,800 megawatts, the trading volume. And the price of electricity is exactly 8,874 rupees per megawatt hour. So this is how the markets operate. So for every quarter hour, you have a separate auction. You submit the bids, they are aggregated, you form the two curves, the intersection gives you the trading volume and the price. So now that we know the mechanism, let's have a look at how can we predict what is going to happen before it happens. So when we are bidding on day D for the next day, we would like to know what is our prediction of the price on the next day, because then our bids can be structured in such a way that we can maximize our profits or limit our losses. So this is something that we do. Companies trading in the power market, they do it on a daily basis. This is an important daily activity. Okay, so today I'll be talking about different topics in this area. They are based on some review publications here. This is the 2014 review I wrote on electricity price forecasting. So if you ever want to start your studies in this area, this is a very good reference point, 2014 International Journal of Forecasting. That's 2018 paper on probabilistic forecasting. I'll be talking about it later on what is probabilistic forecasting. And the most recent one, 2021, in applied energy on machine learning tools, or deep learning also tools in this area. So I'll cover today a bit of model evolution, how this has evolved all the time, and then quickly jump to probabilistic forecasting to give you some glimpse of what is the emerging technology. Okay, so this is actually a curve. This is a similar curve I've shown you. I've shown you the last like one day previously for India. Here we have a whole week, and this is one of the European markets. You also see the morning peak and the afternoon peak. They can have different sizes on different days. You see that the weekends are typically lower. Prices are, so there's of course deviations within the day, within the week, and of course within the year, depending on the climate of a given geographical region. So you can treat this series as one-time series, but it is more natural to treat it as 24 or 96 for India, independent series for each hour or trading period of the day. And this is a more common approach. So you typically build models, and one model for each hour, one model for each of the quarter hour that we want to forecast. So when we predict this red day, and we have it like the first hour of the day, the second hour of the day, and so on until the last period of the day. There is an alternative for some of you who may have some knowledge of functional data analysis. You can think of it as an evolution of curves in a functional space. So not the points, not actual points that you are looking at, but you are modeling the evolution of a curve. And then of course you can discretize it to obtain the points more. So this is an alternative way of representing this, a mathematically more complex one, but it's also a promising one. And I think for markets where you have many load periods like in India, this may be quite appropriate. Okay, so what kind of modeling frameworks have we seen over the years? Traditionally, when you have a number of features that have impact on a variable you want to represent or forecast. So here, let's say this purple one here is you want to predict the price at a given interval, trading interval. And you here in these white boxes, you see the different variables, explanatory variables you can call them, you can call them regressors, you can call them inputs or features, depending on the range of literature, the region of literature. They are called differently, they all mean the same. So these are the variables that impact this one. In a regression setting, a linear regression setting, you have each input is multiplied by some coefficient, added to the next one, and so on to yield the value. So this is just a weighted average of the inputs is the output. Okay, so the early models of the 1990s, they looked at linear regression, but also at nonlinear models, and nonlinear counterpart is a neural net. Here you have a simple feed-forward architecture. The difference, so the inputs are the same as here, the output is the same, the purple one is the same, but here in the middle, it's not that well seen on this projector, it's a light purple hidden layer of neurons, which make the model a non-linear model. So the output is a non-linear output of the inputs, because they go to one of these neurons that have transformation, canonical transformation typically, and this is all added up to the final one. So these simple models were able to tackle non-linearity in the data, but first of all, training them was much long. I mean, in the 1990s was really long time to train well, and they were not really performing much better than simple regression models. As time evolved, we moved into something which is called regularization. Regularization is an approach to remove the less important variables from the model. So if you compare what does the formula look like? So here you have the residual sum of squares. This is the sum of squared differences between your model values and your actual values. This is what you minimize in a regression model, linear regression. In a regular linear regression, you add a penalty factor. This penalty factor is the sum of the weights. The absolute value of the beta is at the betas of the weights here. So you don't want to have large betas and small in your model. You prefer to shrink them. This is also another name for these models. It's a shrinkage operator. So it shrinks the coefficients towards zero, not to have kind of redundancy and points that have very high coefficients. So with a small change in the data can give you really strange results. So it eliminates some of the regressors. Now, lasso, you see the name here, that's one of the most common and commonly used regularization techniques. Lasso stands for least absolute shrinkage and selection operator. The idea is that you can eliminate completely some of the coefficients. So if you start up with a model, these boxes here, they may represent, let's say, all points for the previous day, for the past week, let's say. You may have hundreds or thousands of features in your model. The lasso, what it does, it eliminates most of them, and you end up with something like 10 or 20 regressors only. But not the one that you think as an expert should be there, but the ones that really describe the data that you want to describe. Okay, and these color maps here, you can then later show you which inputs, which features were really important, how much of the time. So that's what you can look at and analyze. Another level of complexity comes with neural nets, which can, in a relatively efficient way, have outputs for all load periods of the day, which is not really the case for linear regression models, where typically the output should be one variable. There are possibilities of vector regressive models, but they do not perform well in this context. So it's much better to have a neural net which performs well. You can go deep. You can have several layers of hidden neurons to let you better represent the nonlinearity in the data and possibly some seasonality in the data. So this is the next level of complexity. And to finish this presentation, let me move to probabilistic forecast, something that the forecasting community, not only electricity price forecast, not only energy forecasting, but forecasting community in general, has looked at in the last 5, maybe 10 years. So the idea here is not to make a prediction of just, let's say, in a simple case, we are forecasting the temperature for tomorrow and the next few days, the next 5 days. So we are today here, this is the temperature. Let's say the temperature at noon in Ajmer tomorrow is going to be, let's say our estimate is 35 degrees Celsius. Okay? But this 35 is quite likely, but maybe a small deviation to be a bit lower or a bit higher. So it's much more informative if we say that with 90% probability, the temperature will be between 34 and 36 degrees, or maybe between 33 and 36 degrees. So to give you information about the distribution of the prices tomorrow, also the temperatures tomorrow, or the variable that you're looking at. This is what is probabilistic forecasting about. So you are not looking only at the expected value tomorrow, not so something that is quite likely to happen, but look at the whole distribution. Now, how can we do it? Well, there's a very interesting approach to this, which is we call distributional neural nets, where the output of the network is not the variable you are forecasting, not the, let's say, price in electricity price forecasting or the temperature in the temperature example, but it is a coefficient of a distribution that describes this variable. So let's say if this is a simple Gaussian distributed variable, then we need the mu and the sigma to forecast them. Given those two variables, we have the distribution of tomorrow's temperature at a certain hour, of tomorrow's price at a certain hour. And surprisingly, these methods tend to perform extremely well. So this is our new study, which is still under review in energy economics. We are able to improve the probabilistic forecast by between 15 and 20% using this distributional neural net approach. But not only is the probabilistic forecast better, but also even the point forecast. If we take out of this the expected value of tomorrow's variable, so tomorrow's, let's say, temperature. Also here, if you look at the two lower rows in this table, they are green and yellow, so especially the green one is much, much better than a typical benchmark we would use in this case. So distributional neural nets, they give you a much more a fuller picture of the phenomenon you are modeling, and give you an advantage both in distributional and in point forecast. Okay, so I've briefly covered. You have some water? Yes. Of this interesting area, and interesting definitely for me, perhaps for some of you. If you heard about it, you like this concept or got interested in this concepts, then have a look at my webpage. All the publications I've written in the last years are there. You can download them. If you have problems with any of those, contact me. I'll help you out with these. I also have a few projects running currently. I still have one postdoc position in one of the projects on electricity price forecasting. If any one of you is willing to work in this area, has some experience in this area, then please contact me, and we can discuss the opportunities. Thank you very much.
Professor Katarzyna Biron is a professor of social simulation and statistical physics and mentor of Academia Ljubljana. at the Wroclaw University of Science and Technology, Holland. She is the recipient of the Young Scientist Award for Socio and Econophysics 2007 and Medal of the Commission of Nation Education 2011. Over the past 20 years, Katarzyna has built an impressive international reputation. With over 2,000 Scopus indexes citation and an H index in excess of 20, she is one of the leading world experts on opinion dynamics. Now I would like to call Professor Katarzyna Veron to deliver her views on the topic Technical Talk on Social Complex System. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
I would like to tell you first that it's one of the most beautiful universities that I've ever seen. It's really great. And I really appreciate you all. And today I will tell you about social complex systems. So I was thinking, what is the best example of complex system in general? Because there are many features that different complex systems share. So have you ever seen something like this on the sky? I'm living by the forest, so maybe not that spectacular, but I see these things almost every day, like really thousands, maybe not in our area, not thousands, but hundreds of birds that are flying on the sky in like coordinated manner. So in fact, you can model this with relatively simple models, with only local rules, and still on this like societal level, you see this emergent collective behavior. So in fact, what is complex system can be summarized in the sentence from metaphysics by Aristotle, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So if many individuals comes together, they start to interact, then you can see some emergent phenomena that cannot be seen like on individual level. And because by training I'm statistical physicist, so my background is statistical physics, theoretical statistical physics. I just moved to management last year, although I was working on social system for some time already, 20 years in fact, last 20 years. But I will give you an example from statistical physics, because in fact it's like the essence of what we are doing for complex systems. So statistical physics were developed to understand how the complex systems, so the systems that are collected by many individuals works. So here on this picture, I'm showing you the cube of ice. So while looking at the cube of ice, or how water boils, or how water freezes, is a macroscopic phenomena, and it belongs to so-called thermodynamics world. But to understand why you see what you see, you go to the microscopic level. And now I have a question to all of you. Do you know what is the difference between a single water molecule that is in a solid ice, or in liquid water, or in just steam, so in gas state? Is there any difference? If you take just single water molecule, there is no difference. There is still the same water molecule, whether it's ice or liquid water. But the liquid water and ice, they look completely different. And this is just because of the collective phenomena. And to describe this collective phenomena, we use so-called microscopic models in physics, which means that we are going to the macroscopic level, on level of particles and interactions between particles. Whereas in social science, we call these models agent-based models. So what are agent-based models? Like the natural tool to describe complex systems. You have individuals that can be humans. I'm dealing mainly with people because I'm working on opinion dynamics. But it could be also organization, it could be vehicles, it could be also animals. So you have some units, they have some properties. For example, here in this simple example, you could think of opinion that is positive and negative, like on this picture. Then you have some environment, some network. It can be just physical space, like here in this room, we are sitting in rows, so it could be represented like by this square lattice. But also we have connections, social connections, like face-to-face, friendship, also on mass media connections, and they are represented by more complex structures. So we have agents, we have environment, so it's kind of network, and then we have interactions, which defines dynamical rules, how the system evolves in time. So to decide how this interaction should look like is usually the most difficult thing. And the first paper in which we were dealing with this more seriously is this paper that I'm showing you. In this paper we build connections between real social response, real social interactions, and like abstract, let's say, physical formulation of these interactions. Of course, we were not doing this like just ourselves. We were collaborating with social psychologists, and we built our model mainly on this diamond model of social response that were developed by Paul Nail. He's a social scientist from United States. And it occurs that like basic social responses are quite simple, although we would like to believe, and we believe that each of us is unique, but on the other hand, we share a lot of common things, and we respond quite often in a similar manner. So there are four main social type of responses as conformity: when we adjust to others, that we behave like others. Of course, we can be also independent, so we can keep our own behavior or our opinion. We can also anti-conform, which is quite strange. So it looks like we have the same opinion as others, then we come into contact with others, and then suddenly, not suddenly, but then after this interaction, we have the opposite opinion. It's not that crazy as it seems to be, like from the first sight, because sometimes it's really strategic. So sometimes to avoid, like, going to the dead point, you would say something that is opposite to others to start some discussion. So this type of interaction, this type of response is also seen quite often. So we take these social models and we build our agent-based model. Why we do this? What is it for? It happens. It occurred that this social interaction, social influence, or the peer influence, in fact, so like influence from our friends, our neighbors, is very important when you think about pro-ecological behavior. And here is an example of very nice paper from Nature Energy. This is not our paper, unfortunately, but it's a very nice paper about peer influence on household energy behaviors. And it occurs that it is one of the main factors, sometimes even more important than economical factor, that influence like how people behave. And by this peer influence or peer effect, what I mean is to just like umbrella over all these things, so over like changing attitudes or changing beliefs or behaviors or opinions, maybe even values, under the influence of others, under the influence of our friends or our family, our relatives, and so on. So this is really important when building these models, and we in fact use this type of models to, for example, understand and model so-called intention behavior gap, and we were doing this together with Anna, who is here, and also Rafa, in 2014. So this is one example, and another example, we were dealing also with so-called difficulty. So as you know, different habitats have different level of difficulty, like segregation of waste is not very nice to do, but on the other hand, it's needed. So there are different behaviors that are more easy or harder to implement. So to take into account is also important, and this is the paper we were working on this together with our colleagues, social scientists. What occurred, and it is very, very interesting, that there is some critical level of difficulty below which some kind of behavior will not be accepted by society, and above which it will spread quite widely. So this is like the critical mass we have in society, and we see it like, for example, when introducing some innovation to the market. Also with this difficulty, we see this criticality. Okay, and here is the example when you take the kind of agent-based model, how it would look like. This is example of like this room or any spatial area. So you have like, let's say, two products or two types of behavior, the green one and the red one. So as you see, initially everywhere is green, and then there are some people, like some initiators that start to be red, as you see here. And then you have some external field. External field could be, there are many things that it could represent as external field. It could be some promotion, it could be some subsidies, it could be some, I don't know, advertisement also. So then if you apply this field, not at a large, like again, some critical level of field, you see that these small clusters appears and they start to spread over the whole society. And this type of patterns are seen really in reality. For example, they are very common if you look at the roof solar panels. It spreads like this. It's not that the whole society immediately adapts this, but it spreads in these small clusters. In Poland, we've seen this, that we had some subsidies, and there are some areas in which you have many of this, and in others you don't have any. Like for example, in our surrounding, that was amazing. So once the subsidies were introduced, house after house started to have it. And in our area, like there's 2 streets, almost all houses have it on the roof. You go like 2 streets further and you don't see it. Why I'm showing you this? Because if you represent the whole society just by a single equation, you cannot see this. Like imagine that you are modeling your society by differential equation. Then what you can say, for example, you can say how many people adapted something already. But here you see really this spatial heterogeneity. So that is why we use this agent-based modeling. And in the end, I would like, because maybe it's a bit exotic, so I would like to present you one model, the simple model, like the initial version of this model, to show you how this type of model works. So this model that I will be showing you was created based on this social knowledge that unanimity is very important to persuade others. So it was shown by several social experiments that majority of people that are doing something cannot be enough to convince you to change your behavior. Whereas if you have unanimous opinion or unanimous behavior of others, you adapt this much more easy. So we built this model upon this rule that you need unanimity, and this is very simple model. So it was designed to model innovation of diffusion of innovation. So you will have only 2 states. So like here, you have agents on a network. It can be any kind of graph. It is just a sample graph. So you have adopted and unadopted. So this is like certain point in time. You have this situation, and how it works at a single update of this model. So you choose a single agent, like here represented in this yellow circle. Then you ask what would be the type of social response, and you could have different, and you apply them with some probability. So for example, let's think about simple model. You have only independence with some probability and conformity with probability 1 minus p, and then you decide upon which type of behavior it will represent. Then let's imagine that it is conformity in this case. So if it's conformity, we choose among all neighbors, we choose Q agents. That's why the name Q voter, because you assume that at each time step only Q others will be influenced you. So you randomly choose among all your neighbors. Like neighbors are those guys which you are connected to, so we are linked to. As you see in this case, this guy in the yellow circle has 4 neighbors, but I'm showing an example in which Q is equal to 3, so I'm choosing 3 neighbors out of them, and I'm asking, are they unanimous? Are they in the same state? No, in this case not. So maybe at another time I would choose these three guys. In this situation, this green guy will adopt the red color, so it will flip. And this is update. So this is like this model work. And of course we are doing this many times, so I will not go into details, but this is like single update. We are running and running this kind of model over and over again, and we see that it approaches some final state. So what we can do with this type of models, we can look, for example, what is the role of local interactions, what is the role of global interaction. This was what we were working on in this paper, for example. We can see different critical transition, like we can see what is the critical level of advertisement, or critical level of awareness, or maybe the critical level of difficulty, and so on, so on. Yeah, sorry, I did it for myself to check the time. We build this agent-based modeling. We can look at the structure, we can look at the heterogeneities, and we can ask many other questions. Thank you very much.
With an MSc in Management 2001, a PhD in Electrical Power System 2006, she has spent 4 years in power industry, that is 2006 to 2010, and a habilitation in Management Science 2019. She possesses unique expertise on the interface of energy markets, management and economics. Now I request Professor Anna to please share some information on the topic of technical talk on determinants of consumers, acceptance of electrical vehicles. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
All really appreciate your hospitality. Yes, my name is Anna, and today I would like to talk about my recent research that I have done together with my colleagues from my university. That was about generally electric vehicles and also other kinds of alternative fuel vehicles. In my presentation, I would like to start with some motivation, actually why this topic was interesting for us, why we have started actually examining it. So as you may see here, unfortunately, even more than 20% of the global energy is consumed by the transportation sector, both the public and the private one. Moreover, unfortunately again, transportation belongs to one of the main sources of greenhouse gases emissions, like CO2 for example. What can we do with it? Well, one of the solutions, which is actually being recommended by various institutions on the international and national level, is going into the direction into sustainable transportation. And among one of the recommendations which are derived from sustainable transportation is the exchange of our conventional vehicles that we all actually, most of us are actually using on a regular basis, with so-called alternative fuel vehicles. What they are? They mainly include 3 categories of cars, as are displayed now on the screen, namely hybrid electric vehicles. This type of cars actually is the closest to the cars that we all know, with conventional engine. Then we have plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, a little bit more complicated, that we can actually charge from the socket. And finally, battery electric vehicle with the completely, generally electric type of the engine. Of course, we may also have fuel cell hydrogen vehicles, but they are not so popular in our part of Europe. That's why we haven't taken them into account in our survey. On this slide, you can see a status quo of the deployment, diffusion, market penetration of alternative fuel vehicles in Europe and in Poland. And what you can see, do I have here an enlightening?
Yeah.
That's the one here on the top?
No, it's the one here.
This one, okay, thank you. So what you can see here is actually that still this yellow and orange color show the share of petrol and diesel cars in European Union. This small part here is responsible for alternative fuel vehicles, among which, of course, hybrid electrical vehicles are the most popular. Battery electric vehicles are actually very, let's say, unique although their number keeps increasing on a regular annual basis. And here is the description of Poland. And again, you may see that yellow and orange colors dominate here, right? Alternative fuel vehicles are also still very, very rare, but we started to observe the slow increase of the number of those vehicles. What are the research topics? Actually, alternative fuel vehicles have become interesting for the researchers due to many reasons. They also belong to a kind of innovation. They are connected with sustainable transportation, as I said. Moreover, they are using, let's say, new technologies, not only due to the fact that they have electric vehicle, but also they are supported with some other, sometimes even AI technologies that, for example, allow autonomic operation of the cars. But as with any innovation, what researchers are interested in is the point of view of the consumers, is the point of view of the market. Is demand side of the market, namely buyers, consumers, ready to adopt such cars? And if no, then why? What are the barriers of acceptance, of adoption of such cars? So as you may see, I have just mentioned a few research topics which are quite common nowadays in the literature, actually around the world. So many researchers are now running different studies in which they try to determine, explore, and analyze consumer preferences for alternative fuel vehicles. Researchers namely want to get to know what attributes of those vehicles could be, let's say, convincing for the potential buyers, and based on these findings, they can also propose some recommendations, marketing recommendations for the future, not only for the producers of those cars, but also for the authorities, for the governments, for example, in terms of subsidies or other political tools that could be used. Then, researchers also focus on market segmentation of potential users. We are not the same, right? We have different preferences, yes? We have different desires, different needs. And sometimes we cannot offer the same product, the same service to everybody. That's why in any kind of marketing research, marketing surveys, market segmentation becomes really important. Finally, willingness to pay. So our evaluation of the product, our evaluation of the appraisal of the alternative fuel vehicles becomes really important. Based on these findings, we can then propose a right level of the market price of these goods and keep our fingers crossed that it will be not too high and our consumers will be able to accept it and buy the product. Of course, as I said, with each innovation we have some obstacles and barriers for acceptance. That's why many researchers focus on these areas and try to define what are the barriers for acceptance and, in the next step, what can be done to limit these barriers or maybe eliminate it all. Finally, as I already mentioned, researchers try to find out what is the effectiveness of various governmental tools and options and policies that could be used in order to enhance, to accelerate the diffusion of sustainable means of transportation. Maybe like this. What my team has done, we have actually have run the project called Daphne, because this comes from these yellow letters in the title, which was diffusion of alternative fuel passenger vehicles in Poland, empirical survey of consumers' preferences and agent-based modeling of market penetration. Our general aim was to investigate and explore consumers' social but also technical readiness to adopt alternative fuel vehicles, namely hybrids, plug-in electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles. And our general aim was, of course, subdivided into few objectives like assessment of consumers' awareness. So we wanted to learn how aware our potential consumers are in terms of new types of vehicles which are available in the market. In the second step, we wanted to quantify their evaluation, their appraisal of alternative fuel vehicles and their preferences of the alternative fuel vehicles attributes. And in the last step, we wanted to evaluate various policies and scenarios that potentially can accelerate or enhance the diffusion of those types of vehicles. This was our research framework. As you see, it was divided into three main parts, and we also used different tools, different methods, but generally all of the study was done in Poland on the adult representatives of the society who were willing to purchase a car in the coming 12 months. So with the help of the research agency, we have recruited the participants of the survey who declared that they are actually thinking or planning to buy a car in the coming months. Well, it was important for us because the whole survey was devoted to the plans regarding the purchase of a car for the household. And the respondent have seen. So imagine, first our respondent was asked what type of the car he or she would prefer. Hybrid, electric vehicle, plug-in or battery electric. In the second question we asked our respondent, would you prefer to buy it or would you prefer to lease the car, loan it, right? Rent it. And especially based on the type of the car, let's say in this case we have hybrid electric vehicle, respondent has seen 25 different scenarios or profiles of the car similar to that one. And in each case, he or she had to ask a similar question. Would you like to buy, in this case, a hybrid electric vehicle with the following features? And you see the level of the safety, which is in this case very low, purchase price, which is again the lowest from the possible one, access to the service, functionality level, and the car type. And on the Likert scale from 1 to 7, our respondent had to evaluate the probability with which he or she would like to purchase such a car. And so we can imagine that we had obtained 25 answers from each respondent related to a given type of a car and given type of a purchase. So like in total we have prepared 6 different conjoints because 3 types of cars and 2 types of the purchase, regular purchase or the leasing, yes? And what we have got, again, this is the example for hybrid electric vehicle, we have obtained levels of partial utilities based on which we could have seen which attribute is actually important for our respondents and whether its influence is positive or negative on the decision to buy such a car. And finally, what we have found out. What you see here on the slide is the summary of purchasing decisions for hybrids, for plug-ins, and for battery electric vehicles. The colors indicate the attribute that we have taken into account. So what we see is that in case of hybrids, the price, the safety level, and the car type, whether it is a small or a big one, a family car, or just for a single person, were the most important. And whereas for the plug-ins and battery electric cars, price and safety level were the most important, and the third important attribute was, of course, range. The range of battery, which determines how far we can go with a car before we need to charge it. These results are for the purchasing of the car, and the one that I am showing you now are for those of the respondents who have chosen leasing as a form of owning the car. Here the results are generally similar, just that the distribution or the level of the values is a little bit different. But as you may see, still the same category of the features, category of the attributes have been repeated. So, to conclude, Nowadays, we do not observe a huge interest in alternative fuel vehicles, mainly due to some infrastructural and technical difficulties. For example, connected with the number of the charging stations that we have, especially in Poland. And still, the majority of consumers prefer to buy a conventional car. However, at least in the European Union, we are aware that some directives, some strategies, I will not evaluate them, whether they are good or not. They just have been imposed, will probably make us buy, sooner or later, one of these alternative fuel vehicles. Mainly because of the care of the environment and sustainable transportation issues. What have been found in my study, on our study, is that price and safety, this was actually something that was surprising for us, because price, it's normal, right? The range of the battery, it's nothing surprising here, but the safety is so important for the customers, it was a very surprising result for us. And this is a very important information for the producers, for people working in marketing, also at the governmental level, how certain marketing campaigns should be prepared, on what kind of attributes the marketing people, so to say, should focus on while preparing not only the design of the product, but also the information which they share with the society, in case they want actually to enhance the level of adoption and speed up the diffusion of these cars. Finally, especially in Poland, stable level of regulations, clear regulations that are easy to understand for the consumers are very important. If you are interested in this topic, you may also have a look on our papers that have been published in recent years, especially this first one here, in Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews, summarizes the results that I have shown you regarding the conjoint analysis. So if you are interested in conjoint analysis, you want to learn some more technicalities, please go ahead and read it. And in case you have some questions that you want to ask me also later on, here's my email address. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Professor Anna. Any queries, any questions? Please come forward and you can ask. I consider it a great honor to welcome our next expert, Dr. Dimitriou, on the stage. We are so honored and privileged to have you among us, sir. Dr. Dimitriou has been an assistant professor at the Department of Operation Research and Business Intelligence, Faculty of Management, Wroclaw Tech, since October 2020. He has an interdisciplinary academic background with bachelor's in mathematics and master's and PhD in informatics from Greece. Post his PhD, he continued his research activities in Portugal as a researcher for 3 years. His main research interests focus on performance measurement, multi-criteria decision-making, and multi-objective programming. I'm glad to invite Dr. Dimitriou to share his views on the topic, technical talk on current trends in performance measurement. Please.
First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation. India is a great country. Izmir is an amazing city, so it's our great pleasure, all of us, to be here. So, regarding my presentation, I would like to present some recent developments in the area of performance measurement, which to some extent also reflect the current trends in this area. So, this is the outline of my presentation. I would like to start with a real case study, which is about the Portuguese footwear industry. Then I will talk about a little bit the trading literature, and I will present data and development analysis, which we use eventually to measure trading potentials. And eventually I will conclude with the main results of our case study. Now, when I was working in Portugal for a couple of years, and Portugal has a great presence in the international markets in terms of exporting footwears. So when I was working in Portugal, we were in contact with the Portuguese Footwear Association, and we had a request from them. Can we measure, can we identify trading potentials with existing trading partner countries? Like, for instance, if Portugal is exporting to Spain, to France, to Germany, are there any potentials to increase the export volume? And actually here in this slide we can see that Portugal is among the top 10 exporters of leather footwear. Of course, leather is not the only type of footwear it exports. It exports footwear with textile or even plastic and rubber. So we had several types of footwears, and we had to check whether Portugal can export more. When this question came, none of us had any idea actually about the trading literature. So this was the first thing that we did. What we realized actually is that there are two broad classes of methods. The first, let's say, class refers to expanding to new geographical markets. And most of the studies are mainly at the firm level. For instance, someone is having a firm, he wants to expand it to start exporting to a new country, and then he wants to check which country is the best one in order to export. Here there are many variables that they take into consideration, as well as many methods. Now, the second category is about expansion within existing markets. Most of these studies are at the country level. Like, if a country is exporting to another country, how much can it increase its exports? So here, most of all of these studies, they are relying on the gravity equation. What is this gravity equation? Actually, it's inspired by the Newton gravity law, and it says that the trade from country I to country J is actually proportional to the product of the country's GDP and inversely proportional to their distance. All these years, this is the workhorse for international trading. And what they are doing, actually this is a nonlinear equation, so they apply log transformation to turn it into a linear one, and they employ linear regression or stochastic frontier analysis. However, there are a few issues. First of all, with regression analysis, what we get is an average trend. So it's not really easy to identify targets. If someone is overperforming the average, which will be his target, if any? SFA is dealing with this issue as a stochastic frontier analysis methods, but both of them are parametric approaches, in the sense that they are assuming a specific functional form regarding the level of exports and the dependent variables. And what if this function is not precise enough? What if this function is not accurate? Then we are losing information. Okay? We're getting misleading information. So why not to rely on the data themselves? And this is what we did in this case. We actually employed data envelopment analysis. What is data envelopment analysis, or so-called DEA as an acronym? Is a non-parametric technique for measuring the technical efficiency of decision-making units on the basis of multiple inputs and multiple outputs. Now, as a decision-making unit, we can assume any entity that is utilizing some resources in order to produce some outputs. Now, as I was saying, it's a non-parametric technique. So how does it work? It aims to identify the efficient frontier based on the best observed best practice units. So for instance, here I have a simple example of a few units with two inputs that are using two resources to produce a single output at the level of 1. And here we have two axes. We have normalized actually the data. We have divided every column over the output. And what we have on the horizontal axis is input 1 over the output, and on the vertical axis we have input 2 over the output. Which are the best units? All of them are producing the same output. So the best units are those that are closer to the origin of the axis. Why? Because they are using less resources to produce exactly the same output. Is F unit efficient here? Of course no, because we have unit B that is using less resources and is achieving the same output. What about A and B? Well, we cannot directly compare them because one is using more of input 1 but less of input 2. So actually these two units are using a different mix of the resources to produce the same level of output. So they are both efficient. And the same holds for unit C. So which is the frontier? The frontier here is shaped by these units A, B, and C. Here I didn't make any assumption. I didn't assume any functional form relating the inputs and the outputs. We just relied on the data themselves and nothing more. And what about unit F, which is its efficiency? Well, actually, it is inefficient. In order to be efficient, it should be somewhere on this efficient frontier. But where should it be? Well, we can just look for a radial reduction of all the resources utilized. So if we reduce radially all inputs, we can see that unit F should be in this spot, F prime, in order to be efficient. F prime is actually a virtual unit which reflects some managerial information for unit F, what F should do in order to be competitive with the rest observations. Okay. And which is the efficiency? It's just the ratio of OF prime over OF. Okay. But this is when we have information only for quantities. What about if we have information also for prices? If we know the prices of the resources that we are using, can we minimize the cost? Can we optimize it somehow? Well, we can. Here we have, actually this is if C1 is a cost related to input 1 and C2 is a cost related to input 2, what we get here is an isocost line with the cost that unit F is having. Of course, by reducing the inputs, if I go to the point F prime, this cost is reduced. But is it the optimal one? No, because I can further reduce it down. I can go to point B actually, where the cost is further minimized. And actually what we are saying that unit F should imitate unit B. And this is how we can calculate an overall measure of efficiency. And in this case, because the prices are associated with the inputs, we call it also as cost efficiency. If you have prices related to the outputs, and we want to maximize the quantity of the outputs as well as the revenue we will have from this one, when we are talking about a revenue efficiency model. If we have prices for both inputs and outputs, then of course we can go to a profit efficiency model. So in our case, what we did for the Portuguese footwear industry, we used a revenue efficiency model. And this is the framework which we used. What we are assessing is not the country itself that Portugal is exporting, but we are assessing the exports that Portugal is achieving to this country. So which are the factors we take into consideration? First of all, we use GDP as a proxy of the country size. Countries with higher GDP should mean that we have higher potential of Portugal to export. Proximity. as a measure of distance. Countries that are really close generally tend to have higher trading volumes. And then we have the total imports in terms of value from the whole world that the destination market is receiving. These three variables are actually used as proxies for the demand of the country. And then we include also two extra binary variables here, which reflect trading barriers. If the destination market belongs to the European Economic Area, then there are free trade agreements, and this boosts trading relationships. And the same holds if there is common language. If in the destination market they speak Portuguese. So these are the factors we take into consideration as inputs, and based on them, we evaluate the exports that Portugal is achieving to these destination markets. What does this mean? It means that if the exports of Portugal in a specific country are efficient, then it means that Portugal is achieving the maximum potential it has in this country. But if it is inefficient, this inefficiency is translated into potentials to increase the revenue. Okay. So here are the first results we had from such an analysis. Actually, here we have grouped all destination markets into three classes. Countries that belong in the European Economic Area and they don't speak Portuguese. Countries that do not belong in the European Economic Area and they do not speak Portuguese. And countries that do not belong in the European Economic Area and speak Portuguese. To our surprise, we found out that the maximum potentials are in the countries of the European Economic Area. So actually, the Portuguese footwear industry indeed is doing a great job into this area, but it can further increase its exports to the European Economic Area countries. Now, the next question is, since we managed to identify some revenue potentials, can we identify some targets for price and quantities? Okay, this is a revenue that Portugal can achieve, the Portuguese footwear industry can achieve, which is the number of the quantity and the prices that should make. This is a really tricky question because we always have to consider whether we have a perfect competition in the market or not. If we have perfect competition, nothing can change. But in reality, there is no perfect competition. And if there is no perfect competition, there were some recent papers who were talking about it, but they were assuming a real exact relationship between quantities and prices. So actually what they were doing, they were employing a semi-parametric approach to identify targets for quantities and prices. So what we did, in order to avoid bias from such assumptions, we developed a new method, a fully non-parametric method to decompose the revenue potentials into targets for quantities and prices. I will not go for the technical details, but I would just like to see you some results regarding rubber and plastic. So here, for instance, we have results for countries that belong to the European Economic Area, and we see that we have, the model suggests an increase in prices and a decrease in quantities. This makes some sense in terms of economics. Like if you decrease the quantities, you will increase the prices. But we see that in other group of countries, we should increase both of them. We should increase both quantities and prices. Of course, at the first look, this does not really make sense. How can you convince a market to buy more from you and higher prices? Well, actually here what is really happening is that price is a proxy for the quality. And what this graph is saying here is that you could sell more if you increase your quality. And by increasing quality means increasing the prices. Okay? Because in these countries, you could achieve that. Okay. Now, let's have an overview of the results. Do these results make some sense? First of all, in France and Spain, we noticed a gradual decrease of the revenue efficiency over the last years. We had final data, so we ran this model across different years. And indeed, we had information that the Portuguese footwear industry is complaining about problems with these countries. And this model managed to detect such issues. Also, we noticed an increase in the revenue efficiency in the US. And indeed, the industry is putting a lot of effort the last years to penetrate into this market. We also realized a high revenue increase in Germany. And this is attributed because one of Denmark's main factories is located in Portugal. Okay. So this is something, again, that the model could capture. And of course, apart from these targets for revenue, we managed to identify different price quality strategies that Portuguese footwear industry could achieve. Of course, there are some limitations in the model, and the limitation is that Australia and New Zealand have really the lowest proximity. This means that they are really far away. So we don't have any other countries at the same distance to compare with. Okay. So we don't have enough data to evaluate more precisely, more accurate the trading potentials of Portugal and these two countries. Okay. Now, this was a work that was recently published in 2000. Actually, it was accepted in 2021. It has a volume in 2022. If you want to have a look at more technical details, you can read the paper or even contact me and give you some further feedback. So, thank you very much for your attention.
From BTech Mechanical Department. He did his master's and PhD from Poland. Sir, you hardly need any introduction. You have made all of us proud of your distinguished work in numerous capacities in India and across the world. You are one of the most celebrated foreign service dignitaries. Dr. Yash Chawla is the Journal Chair of ETBI Series, an Assistant Professor of Innovation and Marketing Management, and a member of Academia Leuvenum at Wroclaw University of Science and Technology. He also serves as R&D Communication Advisor at DAC Digital Poland. Now I would like to call Dr. Yash Chawla to deliver his views on the topic Predictor and Outcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, and once again thank you for all the hospitality. The topic that I'm going to discuss today is one of the biggest research projects that I have done during my short scientific career so far. And as you can see that there have been a lot of partner institutions, so there were actually total 15 researchers involved from 13 different countries to do this research, including researchers from University of California, Berkeley, also Aarhus University or Rennes Business School. So these are reputed schools which partnered for this research with us. You might have heard about fake news, but did you know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, governments were more worried about fake news propagation that could lead to mass casualties rather than just COVID-19. It was considered to be one of the most important threats that we were facing during the COVID-19 crisis. And this was shared by a lot of agencies such as European Police or United Nations, World Health Organizations, and they were trying to put out facts and they were trying to bust the myths. But the problem was that nobody knew the total facts. The information was so fluid that this whole research, we did it in about a month's time, and the information about, say, just wearing of masks actually changed three times during that 1 month period. So when we started the survey, it was like, you should not wear the mask. Then suddenly they said that you should wear the mask. Then they said you should not wear the mask. And then again, you should wear the mask. So not just the people, but the organizations that are supposed to know everything were also in a state of maybe, yes, no, I don't know. So everything was in a gray state. And as I said, the world governments and organizations were saying that we need to take unprecedented action to basically curb the fake news and stop in some way the panic that people had during that time. So what we did, of course everybody was doing COVID-19 research, so we had to do something, the fear of missing out. We also wanted to do something. So in a very short span of time, actually in just 1 week, we made the whole consortium. I just contacted, Anna and I had the first discussion, then we contacted a few people, then those few people contacted other few people, and suddenly we had 15 people doing a research with just a few questions in mind. Because there was no established literature about what questions we need to ask about specifically COVID-19, so we actually had to look at what we are going to do in terms of what we are going to ask in our survey. So one of the things that we looked at, or we always had this perception of social media and the internet playing a major role in terms of diffusion of fake news. So we were looking at the sources of information, and we were thinking whether sources of information itself have a role to play in terms of individuals' opinion and individuals' behavior. So this was a very basic structure that we wanted to shed light upon. So we came up with 2 research questions. The first one was, if somebody is accessing specific information from a source which they perceive credible or non-credible, what kind of impact does it have, or what kind of association does it have with the knowledge that they get about that topic because of use of those sources. And the second thing that we wanted to know is that if somebody is using some kind of sources and they get a certain level of knowledge about a topic, how does it affect their opinion and their behavior? So first thing that we needed to do is to have a measure of knowledge. So about COVID-19, as I said, we did not have any measure of knowledge about public knowledge. So we established something called CPK, COVID-19 Perceived Knowledge Index. Now what it basically meant was that we went to World Health Organization's website at the time when we were designing the survey, and we created about 26 variables. And in those 26 variables, we covered 3 different aspects. The first one was the general knowledge about COVID-19, asking whether they know what that is, and whether they know that coronavirus is a family of viruses, not just one virus, etc. Then the second one was about knowledge of prevention, whether you should hear the problem of this one variable, which was about the mask, came in, because when we started collecting the data, as I said, and then when we ended the data, the information was basically changing. So we had to exclude certain variables because of this. So we checked their knowledge regarding this, we checked their knowledge regarding the myths and the facts about COVID-19, and in total 25 variables came together, and we created an index called CPK, which is COVID-19 Perceived Knowledge Index. Please keep this in mind, because I'll be using a lot of this CPK. So CPK stands for COVID-19 Perceived Knowledge Index. It's like the main actor of this whole movie that we are going to discuss right now. And this was the framework. So we had a 3-step framework. We had a left-hand side, we had the main actor, and we had the right-hand side. So let's look at the left-hand side. So we were trying to understand what would predict that what is the level of CPK that certain individual has. So we have these 3 things about 3 categories of variables. We had the use of social media, use of the internet, the frequency of using the internet or the social media that we are talking about, and maybe somebody acts in certain way to safeguard themselves from misinformation. Then we had the second, what kind of social media and traditional media and different information sources were being used. And then we had a very interesting variable, because we thought that knowledge can actually be impacted by the number of COVID-19 cases itself. So our hypothesis or the construct that we used here was about the number of COVID-19 cases locally, number of COVID-19 cases globally, and there is a very interesting result that came out of this, which I will basically share. And then once we measure somebody's knowledge, then we ask them also about what kind of behavior would they adopt. So will they do social distancing, or do they have fear of COVID-19, or will they be willing to help somebody who has COVID-19, and so on. So as you can see, all of these were considered as the outcome of CPK, and this is what we were trying to see. First, measuring the knowledge, and then looking at what are the predictors, and on then right hand side we were trying to see that if somebody has certain level of knowledge, what do they do, what do they think, and what do they perceive. Okay, so I will just quickly go through the method, because I think the more interesting things are the results, where you would probably be surprised by some of the things, or maybe not surprised by some of the things. So we had 76 mandatory questions. The whole questionnaire was translated in 27 different languages. And I would like to bust a myth here. Most of us think that doing a large-scale survey, of course, this is a convenience sampling. So when you have convenience sampling, the results cannot be generalized as much as if you do probabilistic sampling. For instance, what Anna did, the numbers were less because it's probabilistic sampling. So her results can actually be generalized for the whole Polish population. But here we have to take some reservation. So we cannot say that these results can be generalized for the whole internet population, but we can say that it's highly probable, or that these associations are true for the internet users. So that is like the difference, and you will see the difference in terms of numbers as well. So when you talk, we had 27 different languages, and as I was mentioning, that we actually spent only 500 zlotys, so that's less than 10,000 Indian rupees, to basically do this whole research that you're looking at. The whole research was done only in less than 10,000 Indian rupees of investment, which was more about the survey platform, not about the data or the translation of languages. It was all done by volunteers who came forward to help us because we requested them for it. We had 15 additional questions, 2 open-ended questions, and as you can see, we had 15,552 responses from 123 different countries. So it was in true sense a global research. Let's see, what were we, okay, let's skip to this one. Red means it's really bad, green means it's good. So what we were looking at here is that if somebody, so here you have the information sources, and here you have the results. So what we were looking at is that if, for instance, let's take national TV. So if somebody considered national TV to be not credible as compared to credible, then they had lower knowledge or lower CPK. So simply saying that if somebody is considering national TV as credible, then they had less knowledge as compared to if you look at national TV news and say, no, I cannot trust this. So interesting thing here was about the radio having a positive impact. Radio is usually not for news, but during the crisis, radio was also passing on information, specifically saying that do not trust news sources, or go to trusted news sources and try to basically confirm the information that you're having. Then newspapers were still considered to be credible, and people who were trusting the newspapers had more credible information, because newspapers still need to vet the information that is to be published. On social media, nobody vets any information. We just like publish it and say, oh, maybe it is wrong, maybe it's right, I don't care. It is breaking news, so let me share. Right? Because I want to be the first one to share so that people will like, comment, and follow me. Oh, this guy has really updated information, we should follow. So it's all about getting about followers. And as you can see, all of social media is red. So anybody who was just looking at social media and thinking, oh, this information is true, or was getting panicked just by looking at something on Facebook or Instagram, then they were having less knowledge about COVID-19. One of the interesting things that we noticed was, among all social media platforms, LinkedIn was an important social media platform where the discussions that were happening were actually in line with what was going on around the world. So there was less fake news on LinkedIn as compared to any other platforms. And I don't know how many of you have heard about Reddit, but on Reddit you can actually go and ask questions, and people with certain expertise, if they relate to it, they answer the questions. And on that also, people who went to Reddit and asked questions to experts then were having higher knowledge as compared to people who considered it to be non-credible.
A quick thanks.
Bhagwant University, distinguished our foreign delegates, participants coming from different parts of the country, faculty members and dear students. A very warm good afternoon to one and all present here. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this celebrated occasion. I would like to dedicate a special note of thanks to our chairman for his vision, focus and dedication that inspires and motivates us each day. Thank you, sir. I am thankful to the respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. B.K. Sharma for his guidance, immense support and exceptional leadership qualities that greatly contributed in the organizing this international symposium. Thank you, sir. I would like to show my sincere gratitude to all my honorable foreign delegates for taking time out from their busy schedules and coming all the way from Poland to Ajmer and grace our occasion. Thank you to all. I am thankful to the print and digital media persons for covering this mega event. Thanks to all delegates all over the country for sparing a day with to attend the international symposium. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record my hearty thanks to the convener, co-convener, coordinators, co-coordinators, members of the organizing committee, faculty members, non-teaching staff, students and all volunteers and cultural event students for their selfless and tireless efforts in making this symposium a grand success. Thank you to all. Thank you.